All right, welcome to the next video in the series of videos we're doing for making a modern Sukajan jacket. In the last video we had cut all of our pattern pieces, and in this video we're going to start sewing up the sleeves. Now if you followed us in the previous video, you might have seen that we laser cut our pattern pieces, and part of the reason is that because this jacket has a raglan sleeve, those parts, individual pattern parts, are really big. They're like almost each sleeve is almost half the jacket, or the sleeves combined are about half the jacket. So what I've done in order to laser cut it is I've made it into two pieces that would then fit onto a single cut. So we cut them like this, but then we join them together. This is actually one half of the sleeve, one half of one sleeve. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sew these together, and then also sew up the stripe, because the stripe is similar, that it's actually too long to cut in one pass on the laser. So we split the stripe into two pieces. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put those together. Now if you did not laser cut this and you went the path of just printing out the PDF and then cutting the pieces manually, you could actually skip this step by basically taking your pattern pieces and treating it like a block, and then essentially combining the pattern along these lines, and then just cut your pattern to this shape, this net shape. The other piece of this is that you'll notice I've put a set of 3 notches here. That's so that you can know, because we're going to have a bunch of different sleeve pieces, that's so you know that this one is for one piece, the front or the back, and then there's a second one that has 2 notches. So that way you don't accidentally try to match up the 3 with the 2. Okay, so that's just an indication once you've cut it to help you make sure you're putting the right pieces together. You'll be looking for these notches here. All right, we're gonna take this over to the sewing machine. All right, we're gonna start with these 2 that made up, and we're gonna do it face to face. And so you line up the edges. The notches should line up in the middle and to that end. And we've got, this is a 5/8 seam allowance. And I like to use these clips. So I'm going to put one on the end here. You can get these on Amazon. And I like it for the satin because it's a little bit just easier to use than putting needles in there. Alright, let's do one in the middle. Alright, so we've lined up the notches in the middle and our 2 ends. And now let's put a few more in between here. The satin is really slippery, especially face to face, so try to put in quite a few of these. Yes. Okay. All right. I'm on a Juki 9000 here. The thread that I'm using is this gray Maxi Lock, and I like that. This is a style choice, and I like it for this design because I like the stitching to show, and so by using gray I'm getting good contrast on both the black and the white, and so this makes the stitching more visible. I like this especially when we do quilting. It makes it really pop. Now this is a style choice, and I find that gray works sort of almost universally across the board with all the different colors. But this is a choice you're going to have to make for yourself. Like if you want the thread to blend in with the different colors, then you might choose different color threads. But typically I like the thread to be visible, so I like that contrast. So we're going with gray. Okay, I'm going to take off, or just move that first one down. We're 5/8 seam allowance. That puts us on this line here in between the 1 and the 2. We're going to start at the edge. I'm going to take it really slowly just for the video. We do a little bit of a back tack. And then as we work our way through, we'll gradually take off the clips. Okay, and then a little back tack at the end. Then we cut. Alright. Okay, the other thing I like to do is to keep this seam flat. I like to do a top stitch or a cover stitch. And the way we would do that is to fold this, fold it flat. I want to try and fold this whole seam flat. Push it down a little bit. Okay, and then when we come on this side, we want to carefully, I usually would I would line up the stitch with the left side of this foot. And then we just want to be careful that we're keeping the seam open. Okay, so we keep a little pressure on this downward and also pulling outward a little bit because we want to keep that flat. And then we'll start with a little back tack. And we're going to work our way very slowly, making sure that this seam stays flat. Okay, and then a back tack when we get to the end. Okay, so that's one side, and we'll do the same thing, flip it around, and do this side. All right, and I'll meet you when we get to the end of this. Okay, we finished our second one. Okay, so that's what that's going to look like when this is joined together. And this is essentially the back half of one sleeve. So there's 4 of these that we need to do for each side. So we need to do white, white for the left, white, white for the right. That's the one side, and then we also have to do that for the inverse side, the black. So it'll be a left back, left front, right back, right front. So that's going to be eight total of this this process. All right. So do that, and then when we're done with that piece, we're going to talk about doing how we do the stripe. Okay, the stripe similarly is made out of 2 pieces because when it's one piece, it's too long for the laser bed. Again, if you had printed out the pattern, you could basically treat these as blocks and then just combine the 2 pieces into a single pattern piece and just cut it as one. But if you're laser cutting, most laser cutter beds aren't big enough to do the whole piece all together. All right, so this is the face side. This is the top, because you can see this little curve here. This means it's going to be up at the collar on the right hand side. So this is the right sleeve piece. This particular piece is just square, so it doesn't matter how it's oriented, but we do want to sew face to face of these two pieces, and the top one is the one that has the notches. All right, and so what we're going to want to do is the same thing we did before. We're going to put clips on here. Okay, so we've lined up our material face to face. We're going to put clips, one on this end, line this up, one on this end. Okay. I'm also going to put some out here also, just to keep it straight. Alright, now we're ready to stitch that. Okay, so same process. It's a 5/8 seam allowance, so we're on this line here. And we're going to do a little bit of a back tack. Oops, we lost our thread. Okay, now we're back. Sometimes the auto cutter doesn't cut it cleanly, and then when you pull it, it's pulling the thread out if you pull it too fast. All right, back tack. And then we're going to pull these clips out as we go. And back tack, okay. All right. Okay, we're going to do the same thing where we put a little bit of a top stitch on here. So we'll spread this out. Try to press it down. And then same thing, we just run it through, aligning the seam line with the left side of that foot. And then back tack at the end. And then cut. Alright. And then we'll do the other side. Okay. Alright, so there'll be 4 of these stripe pieces, 2 white, 2 black. Once you've gotten all your pieces together, and I'm going to do this on my side also, once you've got all the pieces together, we're going to talk about quilting, because we want to do some quilting on this. But we're going to do it separate. I like to quilt the sleeve of one color, but not the other color. And so it's going to be a little bit of a alternating quilting based on color. Anyway, get all your pieces, and then we'll jump into the quilting. All right, so now we have all of our sleeve pieces put together. And you're going to want to match them up. There's now 3 pattern pieces for each sleeve. And the way we're going to match them up is that if you look at the top here, the stripe, this is the face, the stripe has a curve that goes a little bit up, and that's going to be for the collar. So with this being the face and going up like that, that means that this is the left sleeve. And if I look at my 2 sleeve pieces at the end, I have one that's going slightly up this way. So that means that matches up with the back, like so, which means that this one is the front. So each sleeve is going to have a front, a stripe, and a back. And you're going to have 2 sleeves for one shell and another set of sleeve pairs for the other shell. All right, now we're going to work on the quilting aspect of that. Before we do that, I want to show you an example of what the end result is going to look like so that you can make your own design choices here. Okay, so typical jacket would have an inner shell and an outer shell, and the inner shell would have the quilting. Now Sukajan is reversible, so there is really no inner or outer, and some Sukajans do have quilting. I think, my personal opinion is the quilting adds a little bit of extra character to it, makes it a little more interesting, but also because it's reversible, you want it to be equally interesting on both sides, right? So what I've done here is I've decided that I'm going to do certain panels quilted, the body panels quilted on one shell, but not the sleeves. And then on the reverse side, I'm having the body panels are not quilted, but the sleeve is quilted. That way I get a little bit of this interesting quilted effect on either side. Now, the other piece of this is that the embroidery tends to work better on the quilted than if you were to do the ironing on this. So so in my case, if I'm doing the embroidery on the quilted side, that means the quilted side is going to be the black and the heat press side is going to be the white. So for us, that means that we're going to be quilting these black sleeves, but then you noticed that the stripe, we also did some quilting on the stripe, but basically like horizontal bars, sort of like an 80s style. All right, so that's what we're going to do, and we're going to start with the stripes. Okay, so the batting we're going to use for this quilting it's this Hobbs Tuscan collection. Now this is a silk blend. I've seen some reviews online that say that like it doesn't look like silk. Well, that's because this is a non-woven, so it's not going to look like silk, but it has silk. It's a silk blend that makes it a little bit more breathable, which is going to be an advantage because this satin material, not very breathable. This is also very thin. This is about the thinnest batting you can get. It's like less than 1/8 of an inch. All right, so I'll link this in the document, but this is the batting we're going to use because it's breathable and it's very thin. Okay, we've laid out our batting material on the cutting table, and we're just going to trace the outline of this pattern. So we're going to just sort of line it up, and we're going to put like a little map weight on there. And I want to bias it just a little bit larger than the pattern piece. Just have a little bit sticking out. Okay. All right, and then we're going to use this roller knife, like a pizza cutter. Just going to cut along this line here, just on the edge. And I'm giving like an extra 1/16 of an inch or so. Okay, and then when I get to the end here, cut that, and then this. Okay. All right. Now we have our batting and our pattern piece, so we're gonna quilt this together. All right, we're gonna add our clips to this. And then keep in mind when we're quilting it, we're going to be quilting bars essentially, so we're going to be going this way like that. We're not going to sew across yet. Let's do both ends first so that it stays even. Okay, and then spread this out and then put clips evenly across the whole length of it. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put this quilting foot on, which has a bar, which gives us an indication of where we want to be lined up. And we're going to start, we want these bars to be, I go 1.25 inches. So we're going to set this bar, let's see, put the middle of this on a mark, and then 1.25 inches would be about like that. All right, now we want to take this foot out. We can unscrew this. And I'm raising this with the knee pedal. And lower that. And just screw it back in. Tighten that up. Okay. And yeah, 1.25 inches. All right, I'm going to use this existing seam as our starting point, our starting reference. So we're just going to go straight on top of that existing seam. This is that way it sort of blends in. Back stitch. Cut. All right. Okay. Now the next one we're going to go this way. So we line up our previous stitch with this bar, and then we make a second stitch, and we're going to try to keep this bar lined up with this stitch. Okay. All right. So that's the first one. We're going to do this all the way down to here, and then we'll flip it. But do that first, and then I'll meet you as we turn it around. Okay, we're at the last one on this end. This is probably going to end up in the seam allowance, but we're just going to, this helps secure it. Okay. All right. Now we've got this part. Now we flip it, and then we'll work our way from the center out that way. Okay. So do that, and I'll meet you on this end. All right. We're at the last one on this other end. This is where the collar attaches. We lost our thread there, but all right. Some of this will end up in the seam allowance, but it also helps hold this together. All right, so that's one stripe piece. and it's got the batting and the quilting. If you went with a thicker batting, you get like a more pronounced quilting effect, but also this is meant for more of like a fall spring weight, so it's any thicker than this is going to get really hot. All right, we're going to do the other one, and then we'll work on putting the whole sleeve together. Okay, so we've quilted the stripes, and now we want to fully make one sleeve, so a back and a front with a stripe. And as we said earlier, there's a little bit of a upward angle when it goes around the collar, and so this would be the left hand side if these two are a pair, which means that we want this one to match up with that. All right, so we're going to take these three pieces over to the sewing machine. Okay, I've changed the foot back to the standard foot instead of the quilting foot. Normally I would have done all my quilting all at one time, but for the sake of clarity, I'm trying to keep the order of operations continuous, and so I'm going to end up going back and forth with that. What we want to do first is we're going to attach the stripe to one of these. Let's do it to this one, the back side, and we're going to go face to face. And this is a 5/8 seam allowance. And then we're going to use these clips as we did before. And we're just going to clip starting from the top all the way down to the bottom. And the reason we start at the top is that it's more critical that the top aligns. The bottom, just due to stretch in the cross grain, it may not align exactly. So we want to make sure our alignment at the top is accurate, and if we have to at the bottom of the sleeve, we can just cut it across. Right, so start applying clips all the way down. I like to, let's not clip it too close, because when we have a 5/8 seam allowance, we want to be able to run this through and have the clip go under without having to constantly adjust it. So when you clip it, maybe clip it at about 1/8 of an inch. All right, so do all of these from the top all the way to the bottom, and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so we have all of our clips in place. We're going to slide this under. Again, 5/8, so that puts it at this line between the 1 and the 2 right there. And you could also tell by where that notch is. So we can put it right there. We're going to do a little back tack. And you see how I put the clip far enough away so it's not going to interfere with the foot. Okay, back tack. Alright, and now we're just going to keep going all the way through. We're pulling this just a little bit to keep good tension. Alright, I'm going to sew this all the way down to the bottom, and we'll see you there. Okay, we're at the end here. You notice it didn't quite line up. It's like 1/8 of an inch. Just a difference between the stretch of the material on a cross grain. That's going to be okay, because when we do the cuff, we're just going to cut it straight across and go get to the end there, do a back tack, then cut. All right. Okay, so we took off all of our clips. We're going to do a cover stitch, a top stitch, similar to how we did our other seams. And what I like to do is, because this is the batting is stiffer, when we do the cover stitch, we're going to fold this and keep the seam. We're not going to try and fold, we're not going to try and split it, but we're going to keep it folded onto one side. And so for this particular piece, we'll do the cover stitch on this side. Okay. And again, we'll try to flatten it out. It doesn't need to be quite as flattened as quite as much, because there's already some stiffness there. But again, we line it up, this edge, with the left side of this foot. And we'll keep a little tension on this to keep this flat. And we'll do our back tack. All right, and then we'll just carefully, keeping this flat with our hands, carefully go all the way down to the end. All right, and I'll meet you when we get to the end. Okay, all the way to the end. Did our back tack and our cut. And this is what that looks like. It's nice and flat. Okay, that's what we wanted. All right, that's looking good. Now we'll do our next piece. Again, this is the top. Sorry. This is the top. And we want to do it face to face. So fold that over, and then we're going to clip this starting from the top and working our way down. Okay, we put in all of our clips. Now we want to sew from the top down because we want the alignment to be more exact at the top. At the bottom, we're probably going to have to cut it to get it even when we put on the cuff. And so to do that, we're going to actually flip it over, and we're going to sew from this side. Now normally I wouldn't sew on from the batting side, but this silk, it's not exactly like polyfill. It's not gonna snag so much. All right, so we're gonna do the same thing, 5/8, and we have our clips. We have our clips set up so it's about 1/8 of an inch in, so they'll bypass that foot. All right, so we do our back tack, and we just keep going. All right, I'm gonna do this all the way till we get to the end, and I'll meet you at the bottom. Okay, we're getting toward the end. All right, here you can see there's quite a bit of extra material here. I'm not sure exactly what that is, but we're gonna clean that up by just cutting straight across when we do the cuff. At the end here, do a back tack, and cut. All right, now we'll take these clips off and then we'll do our top stitch. Okay, the same thing, we want to flatten it out. And again, we're not going to try to split this seam allowance. We're going to let the batting maintain its stiffness and go out and put the top stitch on this side. And in this case, you can actually come from bottom to top. Now, notice that there's a little bit of an offset. There's something not quite right in the pattern, but when we get to this part, we're just going to, when this is sewn up, we're just going to cut straight across, and then our cuff will just line up directly with that. We'll make that adjustment on the fly. All right, same thing here. We want this seam to be to the left, just to the left of that foot. And we're going to put a little bit of a tension on it. We'll start with a back tack. All right, and then holding some tension on it, we're just going to try and maintain this alignment here with the left side of that foot. All right, I'm going to do this the whole way, and we'll see you at the other side. All right, we're towards the end here. Get to this, we'll do our back tack, and then cut. Pull that out. All right, great. Okay, so that looks pretty good, nice and flat. We're going to do the same thing again with the right sleeve, and then we'll come back. We'll do a little bit different quilting when we get to the inverse version of this, where the quilting is going to be on the front and back of the sleeve. All right, I'm going to finish the second piece of this, and then we'll get to the black with the white stripe. Okay, so we have both pieces, both sleeve pieces for one of the shells. I think I'm going to pause it here because we're already, I think we're like over a half hour right now. So we're going to pause it for now. The next video, part 2 of this, will be quilting the black sleeves, but we'll be quilting this part, the back and the front. And then we'll show how to sew these up into a tube, and we can even mock it up as a sleeve and you get an early indication of how it's going to look. All right, so stay tuned for part 2 of the sleeves. I'll try to get that out as soon as possible, and thank you for watching.